And welcome to Rauta's Indie 5 after a week of break. Today we'll start with some, German death metal that doesn't exactly know what year it is. Jokes aside, this one is Godskill, and their second album is kind of a 90s and modern day hybrid. So let's take a look on this second album, Gather of Fear and Blood. As you can see, the cover is pretty modern, some symbol on the background, and then some creepy face, kind of a modern, kind of a horror movie like, but this music is quite different. So here is the booklet, some lyrics, some more graphic content, the mandatory band picture, and then some more lyrics. So this music is kind of a combination of melodic metal or melodic death metal, as some people sometimes like to call it. Think of the Swedish 90s era bands like In Flames, Dark Tranquility, on all that stuff. It wasn't really death metal, but certainly delivered a load of melodic parts with their less than extreme music. But it's also a mid-tempo death metal that is within these tracks that kind of is combined with the kind of a German mentality of creating death metal, which by the way is not exactly the top class. However, Godskill is trying to deliver a heavy blow, which then again is about to punch you unconscious, or at least they kind of a wish to do that. There are some peculiar elements included, like some female vocals, which seem to be totally off. Luckily on only one track, but they're enough to kind of scare people away who just are for the traditional set of pure death metal. Godskill are not exactly a hybrid, but they are a little bit trying the boundaries here, and I'm not sure if it's exactly a good idea. To me it seems like while they have really good production, kind of a decent growling vocals, their material is somewhat demo-ish. Not like they are doing bad stuff here, but kind of like experimenting. At the same time, they're also going for some kind of a safe bets. That is very typical slow tempo death metal riffing, and the type of structures that are very easy to kind of devour and then, to be honest, forget. So it's not like a bad release as such, but it's kind of like unpolished version of what it could be. With weaker production, I would totally say that this is demo material, very mediocre. But to be honest, this one is rather easy to enjoy, given that it's nicely produced and there are no kind of a childish mistakes, except maybe for those female vocals which just don't belong there. But it's my burden and maybe you will like them. Give them a chance if you think this kind of stuff is your cup of tea. Next we move to Italy, and this is from Rome, called Night Gaunt, given by horror author H.P. Lovecraft. Let's remove the advertisement material and take a look on this nice looking digipack. So The Room is their second album. It's more leaning towards traditional doom metal, but there are also some other ideas. I would suggest they are from death metal tradition, even though they might not be that obvious. But with this production, which is quite thick, strong and heavy, it kind of gives the feeling that, or impact more likely, that there are some more than doom metal background to this album. And by the way, this digipack looks really nice. As you can see, they're really nicely set up with these photos. It gives a lot of ideas for your imagination with skulls, larvae, and whatnot. But the music is kind of moving between death metal and doom metal. However, I wouldn't call this doom death. This is more the traditional doom metal style, and the clean vocals, which are the type of epic doom here, they are kind of a, paying homage to the very classic doom metal bands, Candlemass and the like. So it's not like this is a hybrid, even though there are some nuances from death metal side. Now, while I said this production is kind of thick and heavy, I think it complements the music quite nicely. It gives these riffs even more substance than what it would be if the production was, say, more clean, more weak, and the like. Now it's also heavy and kind of gloomy at the same time, as it's also groovy, the kind of a typical traditional early doom stuff. So it's nicely doing the balancing work, kind of a tightrope walking. It's not leaning too much on the death metal side, but it's definitely there on the background. And while the vocals are quite nice, I still think that the Mr. GC behind the vocals and guitars should maybe take a little bit more training or singing lessons. I mean, he has a nice voice there, and he's mostly able to do what he's kind of expected to do with the doom kind of vocals, but it's missing something. It's not as if he's not reaching the heights and lows of the places he was supposed to go. So it's a little bit kind of not delivering as much as I was hoping, but it's not like a big deal here. It's not ruining anything anyway. And like I said, the production overall is giving this album nice coding, and the 37 minutes here is also making sure that this album is not getting bored. It actually has quite short songs for being a doom metal album. Most songs being between 3 and 6 minutes. There are only a couple tracks which exceed 9 minutes, so it's not repeating itself too much. I think it's good work, but it could be even more catchy, maybe even more epic, because now it's a little bit giving it this feeling that it's holding itself back. But definitely a nice album, so you should give it a chance if you are into trad doom at all. Third in line is a band from Poland that started early in the last last decade. Well, not last millennium, but last decade. And they started totally different, kind of doing melodic death metal / metalcore, then changed to death metal, and then again changed to black metal. I know if these guys are after a trend, but it's clear that these guys are sort of through an individual crisis. Well, sort of anyway. In Twilight's embrace, this name kind of rings a bell in the sense that sounds like a gothic metal band could have been in the 1990s. However, black metal is the case, and since this band is Poland, can you guess what trend this band is after? Yes, exactly, Behemoth. Now, like I said, I don't know if these guys are after trend or under trend, but it kind of seems as such. But who I am to blame, who I am to judge, I'm a mere messenger showing you what the guys have here after a few albums. So this new album called Lawa, with a W, I think it's Polish for lava. Anyway, this actually reminds me a lot of Behemoth's material. Unfortunately, not quite as good, but anyhow, all the elements are there. It's kind of like mid-tempo at some point, more sinister at another one. Then there are a little bit of dynamic changes and all that stuff. Luckily, it's only less than 30 minutes. I mean, it sounds so much as a pastiche that is really hard for me to go like full like flag song, like yeah, check it out, it's one of the best albums from Poland, because it is not. It's not bad, however, so I just want to say that even with my slight negativity here, it's mostly good than bad or even mediocre. But it's not really great. It's just something that it seems that these guys have been going through a lot of changes. And I'm saying it kind of reflects here, or at least I think it is reflecting here, because now it seems like this is more a copycat of an album rather than result of 20 years or 15 years of evolution. It's kind of a nice, but then again, it's also a bit like, dudes, do something original. Don't just copycat other bands so much. Worthwhile listening to anyone who is into Behemoth a big time. But anything besides that, well, not really kind of recommend that much. Then we keep the same genre, but we've changed to Finland. This is Sadow's Mortuary, an album called Tulen valtakunta, which translates to Realm of Fire. It is a debut album of a band about 5 years old, 2013. And as of now, they have released a couple of EPs, self-financed or otherwise. And now they are, with first full-length album, obviously, doing some 37 minutes of kind of a very Finnish, very Nordic black metal. Kind of a rawish, kind of a slow or mid-tempo, but very, very Finnish in style. Or one could say Norwegian to some level. I don't know what is it in the veins of Finnish people that has been actually asked from me previously. Why there is a certain type of melodics, why there's certain type of riffs and melancholic in these Finnish black metal bands especially. But there it is, and Sadow's Mortuary is both good and bad, doing exactly that. Now, basically everything there is in place with this album. I mean, the riffs, the vocals, the production, raw as may be, and just everything is in place, theoretically speaking. But as much as is wrong with in Twilight's embrace kind of a pastiche thing and being kind of a copycatish, the same thing applies here. These guys are not exactly original. I do like these raw vocals a lot, and I think their kind of a raw, harsh production is quite fitting for the music. No complaints whatsoever. But when it comes to the actual songs and, songwriting, compositions, how they are just put together, it feels like this is not the sum of its parts. To be honest, with these riffs and these vocals and whatnot, this album should have been a little bit better. This is totally, showing off the potential here. It is all the elements that could just, be the next big thing in Finnish black metal. However, debut album has its typical debut album problems, and that is it's a little bit demo-ish still after 5 years of existence. So basically these guys know what they are doing, but the outcome is not there yet. No cigar, even though there are nice moments. But for big Finnish black metal fans, go check it out, but with those only who have really strong compassion for the type of music. But the last one, last but not least, comes from my home city, Turku, Finland, that is. And this one is a relatively new band, started in 2012. They haven't released anything official yet until last spring when Northern Incarnation released this mini CD called Revenant. This is actually a 3-song EP, about 15 minutes in track lengths total. And as such, it's kind of an atmospheric black metal. So far, not very known band. As you can see, only 3 tracks. They're released by a small label. These guys have been said to be inspired by bands like Winder, and it's not to be honest, it's not too far-fetched. Very simple in design, just lyrics, no band photos whatsoever, and the lineup there. So kind of a simple, minimal in design. But then again, it's the music that matters, right? And I'm happy to tell you, this is pretty damn good, a mini CD or EP with its 15 minutes. Maybe not something that is spin 10 times a row, but kinda you can clearly give this like 2 or 3 spins without getting bored. This is not the most original as such, but the atmospheric, melodic black metal. These guys play mostly mid, slow tempo, but with also some faster parts. This is something that you can feel like home. It seems like you've heard this a million times before, but then again you're also like, hey, I like this. This is something new, something old, and as such works very well. So if you haven't yet heard this band, check it out and hope you get grabs of it. See you soon with more Indie 5 next week or something like that. Bye bye.